Welcome to Between Sundays. I'm Tyler, and I too want you to show love, not offer sacrifices. Today, we're wrapping up our discussion on moral integrity and what to do when we fail. But before we make our get out of jail free cards, now that she's no longer a sinful wretch, let's welcome in one of our top 7 favorite co-hosts, Amy Christie.
That's the worst.
Welcome, Amy.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Top 7. Wow, I've really cracked.
Yep.
I really cracked the top 10.
Yep.
I thought I was like 11 or 12.
No, top 7.
Since there's only 4.
Yeah.
That means I'm really, really doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've had an eventful day. We were just talking about this
my
off
word.
mic, but if friends of the pod, if you need manual labor,
Oh my gosh. No.
who knew? Amy Christie, you could just ask her to join in on some manual labor. What have you been doing today?
Because so yesterday was our sing through for the show, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. So fun. It's going to be such a good show. I just have to say that real quick. But the
Why?
manual.
I want to hear. I mean, this is your chance to talk about it. Barry's not here, by the way.
I know Barry's on his way to Greece, probably or in Greece.
So if you want to talk about talk about whatever you want.
Okay, well, the manual labor was because I was setting up chairs for rehearsal tonight. They had music rehearsal, and I went into just pull the chairs out, and they were all already set up for something else. So I had to stack them and put them on the cart, and it was a lot. I'm sweating. So yes, we had our sing through yesterday with the whole cast, and it's gonna be so good.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So good. So, everybody, some of it, they all get to hear each other sing because some of the soloists know their stuff. The rest of it, they're like listening to the tracks to hear how the music goes. It's just such an upbeat show. It's so fun. And I mean, it's a hard story. Joseph's brothers hate him and sell him into slavery, but the redemption of the show and the way that Joseph is obedient to God over and over and over, even in the face of like the most horrifying adversity you can ever face, and the way he forgives his brothers and the reconciliation and the redemption. And so it was so fun that we have such a strong cast. The brothers are really good and they sing some really fun songs in the show. Isaiah Owens, who's playing Joseph, he's just got the essence of who you would want Joseph to be. Like,
what does that mean?
He's innately like humble and like,
because I've seen some like promo for Joseph like on YouTube.
Yeah, don't.
So if he's got the essence of what Joseph should be, I'm curious what that means to you.
Stop, because some of the promos on YouTube there's been some real bad community theater productions of Joseph. Ours will not be bad.
Awkward silence.
Yeah, it would be. Humility and like kindness and generous spirit. Like he just kind of emanates that. And so
cool.
People are going to just love him and they're going to like root for him. And that's what you want. You want everybody rooting for Joseph. The music's fun. It's real upbeat. There's lots of different styles, genres of music. And it's going to be a fabulous show.
Cool.
Really fun and joyful.
So we did a pre-sale. By the time this comes out, pre-sale is going to be closed. But we did a pre-sale, and the first time we did it, we had over 100 people say we want to early access to tickets. So I think people are getting excited about it. I don't know how many people signed up for this one. But.
I don't know either. But somebody already contacted me that they have their family that wants to come from Cincinnati, so they wanted to know the show date so that they could start organizing when they're coming. So cool. I do think it's a well-known show. It's a very popular show. So it's going to be a lot of fun, but we're kicking off really big now. Like rehearsals are really going to be in full swing now from now till
like every day.
Not every day, like Monday or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is kind of our, cause we have other things going on in this building. Yeah. So we have to kind of work around that.
So when they're like, all right, rehearsal is Sunday, we got no one to move chairs. You're the person.
That's my job. Yeah. I don't have an assistant director this time, which is kind of weird. I usually do. I'm going to give it a whirl and see what happens. But this is like one of those things that I might have asked them to do. I don't know. I'm in the building, so it's easy for me to do. And people would help me. Nobody knew I needed help today. I just needed to get it done. So, all right. Yeah. So that's kind of, what's going on. I was here a long time.
Long time. And today you're going to Pearl Jam concert.
I am going
So we're doing the podcast earlier than normal. So it might be a shorter show because I haven't had enough time to prepare, but Amy insisted on
Sorry.
doing it early in the day.
Sorry. It's
Are you
my
okay?
husband's fault. It's my husband's fault. It's Jeff's fault.
Yeah,
He
it's
wants
his
to, we have lawn seats, so he wants to get in
you gotta
line.
get there
And
early.
he's been waiting a year. They had COVID last year, Pearl Jam, so they had to postpone a year.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, they were supposed to be here yet last year. So that's my life. Kids are, doing all the things.
Yeah.
And Will moved out. He's out.
He's out.
Yeah, he's out. He moved out last week.
So you're not yet an empty nester.
No.
But we've been one step closer each week the last couple weeks.
We have. Yeah. We had dinner. It was really interesting. Maggie came to the ice cream social for Merge, and then she drove me home because we're trying to teach her to drive.
Now that
And-
she's 18 and a half,
Yeah,
she's going to learn how to.
She's 17, but she would kill me for telling everyone. But it was just the three of us, Jeff, Maggie, and me having dinner. It was so
Is it
weird.
quiet?
Yeah,
Like
it's
nobody
very
said
quiet.
anything?
Well,
Everybody's on
except
their
she's
phones?
a chatty one.
Oh,
She's a
okay.
chatty one. She likes to. When you get her talking, she likes to talk. So, how are you? What's going on with you?
I'm good. So sister-in-law had a baby
Yes.
since we last spoke.
We love her.
And I think they're going home now
Yeah,
officially.
today.
So
Yeah, that's what I heard. She was
um,
packing up her bags.
which has been longer than usual, right? So like
Right,
you usually
right.
have a baby and within, I don't know, 30 hours or something, you're
Yeah, they want you
out.
out. Yeah.
She had a baby a week ago. And thank God, I mean, people have been praying for her and the
Yeah.
baby and everything. I think everybody's finally in a
Well,
state of health where
she
she could,
did go home, and
yeah,
then
she did
her
go
blood
home
pressure
and
was
then
high.
had some health concerns
Yeah.
or whatever. So they all went back and they've been back the last 2 or 3 days. But she's back and our family is just kind of waiting with bated breath on how we can help and support.
Yes.
You know, I was on semi dog duty.
Right.
They have 2 giant dogs.
Because your wife, Lauren, it's her sister,
sister,
and she
yeah.
got to be with her. In
Yeah, Lauren was with
delivery,
her.
right?
And they live like 4 houses down from
Yes.
us.
Yeah, I know.
So
Yeah.
if it's like somebody's got to watch the dogs,
It's you.
yeah. Well, Lauren signed us up, but that meant I
right,
that meant I
exactly.
go, and the dog was having tummy troubles,
Oh, yikes.
and so had tummy troubles in its crate.
Did it have diarrhea?
Yeah, but this is a family show. We don't say that.
Oh, diarrhea is not a bad
I'm
word.
just kidding.
There's a lot worse words than diarrhea.
So it had issues. It didn't have issues when I was there, but to fix them, Ben was like, "Hey, can you go to the store and buy cans of pumpkin and spread it in its food?" So I went
Oh.
over there and I was just trying to like do an equal mix
of
of pumpkin and food,
dog food.
and the dog narfed it down and probably went outside and
Threw it
threw it
all up.
all up and whatever. But they also have bees.
Yes,
big
he's a
bee guy.
beekeeper. Is that what they're called? A beekeeper?
Beekeeper, yeah.
Okay.
So we were like, why don't we just send the boys over? Because again, they live a couple houses down. Why don't we just send the boys
Don't
over?
send your young boys over to mess with the bees.
No.
Oh,
to
okay.
like play with the dogs and like get some energy out of the dogs.
Okay, great.
But as soon as they got there, they remembered, oh, there's tons of bees here.
Yeah, they were freaking out.
So they immediately came in and
They were like, "We
Yeah.
don't want to play out there."
yeah, no, they're not interested in that.
Of
so.
course not, because I'd be scared to go out
Yeah,
there.
you
with
just
all
look
those
out the
bees.
window and you like towards the back of the yard, there's just bees everywhere.
Well, that's scary.
Yeah.
Do you have to put on like a hazmat suit to go out
I
there?
didn't go out there. I'm allergic, severely allergic.
Oh, well, that's terrible.
Yeah,
And they're right down the street from you.
I know.
I hope they don't fly up towards your area. That would be really
Yeah.
scary. Well,
Pollinate
without
our
that
plants.
coyote pee, they might be attracted
That's
to your
right.
area.
That's right.
Who knows?
Throwback.
Hey, I remember things. I remember the really unimportant things.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
Yeah,
well, that's
before
fun.
we started today, Amy was like, just don't ask me any hard questions
Yeah,
about the sermon
I
series.
didn't know that by being the only one here,
yeah,
I have to answer
asked
all
the questions. You
no,
gotta,
you got to have some answers
you're
too.
a pastor here. You gotta,
So are
you gotta
you?
bring it.
So are you. So are you. I saw Lou yesterday.
Oh yeah, Lou.
She's
She's
so cute.
toddling around.
She totally is. And you know what? I know that she struggles sometimes going to class.
Yeah.
Can you tell that I'm totally going to try and avoid getting to the questions
Yeah.
so that we only have like 5 minutes left? I was walking down. Yeah, no, I'm not going to. I was walking down the kids' hallway, early childhood at church.
Yeah.
And she was just having a day in there.
Yeah,
was
once
having
she
good.
is somewhere, she's good.
Yeah, she was great.
But Milo's our 7-year-old. He
Brother.
identified early on that she just likes being a part of the group.
Oh,
And
that's
so
nice.
if the group leaves her and drops her off
Oh,
in a
yeah,
room by
right.
herself,
She thinks
she's not happy.
you need to drop Lane and Milo off first.
Yeah, probably.
Then she'd
but they're
be
at the
like-
other end of the hallway.
I know, but then she wouldn't feel so sad. She'd be like, yeah, it's fine. They're gone.
I did learn that my kids, your kids were probably the same.
Mm.
Your
We'll
kids
see.
probably like thought they ran the church growing up.
Oh yeah, they totally did.
And I always saw those kids, like pastors' kids. And I was like, I don't want any part of that. We're like, my kids think they run the
Right.
place.
They totally do.
And mine now are those kids. Like I got a text from one of the people, Cyrus, in the hallway. It was like mid-service. We had to stay for some
during
other
second
thing.
hour.
And they just like wandered back into the hallway
Yeah.
and like just went into a classroom. And I got a text from him and he was like, hey, just so you know, your kids are in here. They're not checked in or anything. They're just like back here.
I love that.
Like, oh man, my kids are those kids where they think they just run the place and they can do whatever they want.
When Liza was like, I think probably 4 or 5, we literally had to almost shut down the church because we could not find her after services. We had no idea where she was. People were like looking everywhere. And of course, there's a pond out front.
Oh yeah.
So you do
gotta be
freak out a little
concerned.
bit
Yeah.
like, hey, could they have? And so we're looking everywhere. Someone comes back with her. She had been in the north end of the building over by where the care center is now on the second floor in a classroom
What?
with the door shut and locked.
How did anybody find
coloring
her?
on a board? Just coloring on a.
See, these kids that think they run the place.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah. Wasn't it Milo that said something about me being the boss of the church or something?
Yeah. When he was younger,
I love what
you would
said
say
there.
hi and he'd say, does that lady run the church?
Yeah. Were you like, yes, absolutely.
Basically, like he said, does she live here?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He said, does she
Does
live
she
here?
live at the church?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty much.
some days, don't you feel
Mhm.
like it? For sure.
All right, so we're going to wrap up our sermon series on moral integrity and moral vision called Refocused.
Yeah.
Barry gave the sermon, but he's not here, so we're just going to, if you didn't watch the sermon, you have no idea if we're telling the truth or not
Uh-oh.
about what we're about to talk
I didn't
about.
watch the sermon. I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
no.
I did.
So obviously without him here, it's probably sinful, actually, to discuss his sermon in detail without him here.
It does feel a little bad,
So
especially because he brings all the knowledge and the wisdom and the, I mean,
Yeah.
and even Marin.
yeah,
Marin brings a lot
well,
of
that's
knowledge.
what we got to do today.
Well, good luck to me.
I did want to dial into some key takeaways. I don't want to go into like too much in detail because he had a lot of like world behind the text stuff and contextual stuff that I don't know he can speak to. But
Oh, before we go there, sorry, I did want to mention the other thing I did with my cast yesterday. I know
What?
we're circling back. It's fine. But Barry came and shared about the Joseph story. I was just,
Oh, all
when we were
right.
talking about context and stuff, he shared kind of the big picture, the big narrative of how Joseph fits into the whole story of the Bible and the story of Jesus. And it was really cool. So just want you all to know out there
Right.
in Podland
Yeah.
that my cast is really prepared for this
Good.
story that they're telling. Okay.
all
So
right,
he did
speaking
a
of
lot
prepared,
of
Amy, if you could just like summarize the big idea of what Barry had
Stop
to
it. That's not even funny. There was so much.
all right, so he kind of laid out
He had a lot of Torah stuff in
the
there.
big idea, I would say, is we've been talking about the concept of moral integrity and sin and being created in the image of God all month. And we talked about these principles of moral integrity. But the big idea here for this week was, what do we do when we fail? What do we do when we mess up? What happens? And how do we navigate that? And in his sermon, he laid out kind of one of the things I found interesting and raised questions in myself was, before Jesus, what was the plan for like forgiving sins? What was the plan? I've always kind of wondered that, and he kind of laid it out. The plan, he said, was that the Torah and the sacrificial system
Right.
would address sin and forgiveness. The Israelites had the Torah, which amounts to 613 commands from God, and knowing that the Israelites would fall short, they would sacrifice a sinless, spotless animal
Right.
in their place as an act of surrender to the will of God.
Mhm.
That's how it was supposed to work. And so I don't know, have you ever, maybe it's just me, but when I hear things like that, I'm like, oh, that's how it was supposed to work. Why didn't it work from that? Why didn't it do that from the beginning? Like anytime we talk about how things were supposed to work, like God's original plan, it's very easy for me to go to, I don't know, dark places and be with like doubt and questions like, if God knew that was if that plan wasn't going to work and God knew that, why wouldn't he have just done that plan that did work from the beginning?
You mean the Jesus plan from the beginning?
Because the Jesus is what ultimately worked, but we had to spend hundreds and hundreds of years with this plan that didn't work. So if God knew so I usually go there when I hear things like this was the plan. It was going to be the Torah and the sinless animal.
Yeah. So
do you ever think that way?
I might not have before you just asked it, but now I am.
Like, was Jesus not always part of the plan?
That's what I'm wondering. Was he not?
Yeah.
Because it feels like the plan. Well, I guess Jesus wouldn't have been part of the plan because the plan was Eden.
Yeah.
The plan was Eden.
So that was plan A. Plan B was Torah and sin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think
sacrificing animals, and plan C was Jesus.
I guess. I mean, I think that Barry's probably going to listen back to this and be like, "Wow, I wish I'd been here to correct them." I feel like he intended Eden, like that's what we were supposed to be in, all of us as humans and you know, creation, all of that.
Yeah.
And then they messed it all up.
Yeah.
And then I feel like the sacrifices came in because they continued to mess it up. Like he was trying to give them an opportunity to still be in relation with him.
Yeah. It was like, here's the Torah, here's these guidelines and
here's
principles,
how you can,
and here's how you can get
and when you mess up,
forgiven.
Here's what you do. Yeah. Here's what you do to be forgiven.
And Barry said they eventually started using this as a get out of jail free card.
Right. Just like we do.
Yeah. So I ask these questions like, why wasn't that plan A? Why wasn't Jesus plan A or whatever?
I don't.
If he knew that was going to be.
I'm
not expecting you or anyone really to know. It's just this is kind of where I go with these sermons. Like, at what point did God decide that it was going to be the plan to send Jesus? Like, at what point did he know that that's what was going to happen? Well, because then you have
all the prophecies. So they were getting visions of Jesus well before Jesus was here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like that.
So I can get lost in that, but I think it's pretty critical. This is where the pastors kick in. Okay, me and you.
Oh, okay. We're going to become pastors now.
Yeah, I think it's pretty critical that we do what Barry says and we think about the overall narrative of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Like the concept of failure of this Torah and sacrifice plan is very nuanced. I think that it's important to see the story of Israel and the people of Israel as not as like a plan gone wrong, but as a part of a larger unfolding story of redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you just focus on the Torah and the sacrifice, you're like, oh yeah, that failed. But if you look at it in the grand scheme of the narrative, you're like, oh, that's just a part of this big redemption story. And I've come to a place where I believe that these failures and shortcomings were not unexpected by God. Just like I don't think when we sin, I don't think God is surprised by that. I don't know if you do. Like, is he like, I didn't see that one coming? Like he knows.
Right.
So I don't believe that the failures of the sacrifice system or Israel or whatever were failures that God didn't see coming. But I think that it's just a part of it, revealing the depth of humanity's need for God.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a part to play in that. Israel had a part to play in that. Eden had a part to play in that.
Right.
And Jesus obviously is the plan A. But I think that's how I've had to answer those types of questions. Like, when did God decide Jesus was going to be the plan? Well, you're asking the wrong question if that's the question
Mm-hmm.
you're asking, because if you just focus on Israel, that's only a fraction of the story. The story is much bigger.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Jesus came to save many, many, many more than just the Israelites, than just his chosen people.
Yeah.
What struck me, and this is going off subject a little bit, is when describing the Israelites at that time, I'm like, oh, hi, Christians in America. Like,
why? What happened?
Just when he was describing the Israelites, I'm like, well, that's exactly what I feel like a lot of American Christians are like. That, okay, we'll just keep going back to the Jesus died for me well, and I've got eternity, got that.
Yeah.
So The rest of it really just doesn't matter that much.
Yeah. So the whole idea of get out of jail free card was interesting to me because I've definitely known people, and I probably behave the way that he was describing, where it's like, I know grace is on the table. I know that unlimited forgiveness is on the table. So have I, and do I see people behave in ways that take that for granted and take advantage of that? And I think the answer is yes.
Well, I do. I think I do personally.
Well, I know you do, but
thank you. Yeah.
I've seen other people do it too.
But I feel like as a whole, American Christians, and I say American because that's what I know best. I feel like they really resemble that the Israelites of this time that like, we'll just live however we want to live. And we're not really concerned about new creation and making things better for others and compassion and humility, because that's hard.
Yeah.
Like, that's hard work. Yes, as Barry said, it's freeing and it's beautiful and it's all the things that we're to be about. But I think we're very comfortable in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So many of us, I'm not saying all of us, there are plenty of people that struggle, but a lot, at least I have all my physical needs met. I'm good. So
you don't think I'm impressive?
I mean,
you have all your physical needs met.
I do. I mean, so I just feel like we can relax because we've crossed that line, we've surrendered, and our eternity is solid.
Mm-hmm.
So I can just kind of have a great time here and do whatever I want to do. And I'm still going to be okay because I've made that commitment.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're probably right. Me. I think though, I think one of the main themes of this sermon series, talking about moral integrity and God's moral vision, I think is actually identifying what our identity is. I use the same word, but it's kind of like he hammered home over and over again, like sin, our identity is to be the image of God.
Right.
That is what it is, not the things we do or the behaviors we embrace in our lives. And I think the failure, when we talk about sin, the failure to live up to our calling reveals a couple of important things. I think one, it reveals our need for a savior. So like our identity is in the image of God. But when we fail that kind of proves that we can't actually like live into our identity without acknowledging that we have a need for a savior. That's kind of what he talked about in terms of like, you have to surrender your life to God.
Yeah.
We can't achieve righteousness by our own efforts. And I think the second thing it reveals when we fail in our calling is God's faithfulness to us. So if we have a need for a savior, failing it to live into the identity of being in the image of God, failing to do that reveals like God's faithfulness, because he's always there. And Barry used the metaphor over and over again of like restoring art or restoring paintings. And he's always there. The Holy Spirit's always available to do that restoration in us. And, and I think the third thing that it revealed to me, the failure to live into our calling as the image bearers of God, is the role of exile and return. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. So Israel's history, including the exile, illustrates in the Bible the consequences of sin and the need for repentance and return to God. Like Barry did the demonstration of what repentance looks like. Dave's done it many times.
Dave's done it a bunch, yeah.
But the Israel's history kind of illustrates the consequences of sin and the need to repent and return to God. The exile is a form of judgment, but it also serves as a purifying purpose. And so what I'm curious is if that's necessary for all of us. Like if we're not called to be identified as sinners, we're called to be the image bearers of God. Exile is a form of judgment, serves as a purifying purpose. It prepares the way to restore the image of God. Have you ever felt like you've been on the outside looking in because of sin or a deterioration of the image of God?
I don't know that I can say that I have. I don't feel like I have felt in exile.
Mm-hmm.
And what does exile mean? Exile from the thing that you've got a problem with, exile from God himself, exile from the people around you that, like, I guess I can see modern day examples of potential exile. Like, let's talk about maybe somebody that's addicted to drugs. They go away for a period of time to get themselves clean. And then they're able to return. I guess you could look at that as a form of exile. They're going away to restore themselves. They're getting themselves away from the things, but that wouldn't necessarily be like exile from God. Like in the biblical exile, do you feel like they were not then in communion with God at all? Was it like part
probably, of probably. But when I think of, like, when I heard Barry talking about this, when I look at the overall picture of the narrative of God, or the narrative of the Bible and the story of Israel, exile is a huge part of it. And it was two things. It
in
was
the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It was two things. It was judgment from God and separation from God, but it was also a purification process of the people of God. And so as he was talking about kind of the Torah and the sacrificing system, I thought about myself, and I was like, I've never been exiled necessarily, but I feel like I've felt the feelings of what it feels like to be exiled. I have felt separated from God. I have felt misunderstood and judged and unwelcome because of either my past decisions or circumstances. And there are so many people that I have felt exiled by, like they used to be friends and they didn't say anything during those moments of when I felt like I needed God or that community. And I feel like I've certainly felt the feelings of exile, but one of the truths about that is I completely surrendered myself, my past, my future to the Lord. And that was a purification process that has been unmatched the rest of my life.
Right.
And a purification process is super painful, but it was right and it was liberating.
But you had to choose that.
Yeah, you do. You do have
and
to
I
choose
do
it.
believe that. I mean, I've said to myself, to my kids, to anyone that, like, when you are in a bad place, whether you put yourself there or circumstances have put you there, or sinful pattern or whatever, you have a choice to make in that moment. Like, am I going to continue to spiral down this hole that I'm in? Or am I going to palms up, say, what do you want to do with me in this, Lord? How am I going to, where am I going to go from here? Because I have watched over, and you too, I mean, as pastors, we sit with people all the time that can't, like literally, you're never going to get out of this hole.
Yeah.
Because you refuse, number one, to even surrender in that moment and say, just take me as I am and do what you will with me. And I'm willing to do all the work to make it right, to get better, because you're right. Purification is really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard
and tedious and painful. But the other side of it is freedom and beauty and all the things that we're called to be. But I don't know, in the exile of the Old Testament, like, I feel like I don't ever feel like God is putting me in exile now.
No, I don't feel that.
Like, I feel like in the Old Testament, he was like, I'm really angry with you and I'm going to exile you for a period of time. Maybe is it the difference because we have Jesus? Is the difference because Jesus took our place and is advocating for us?
Yeah.
Like that's the other thing that, like, I don't know how I grew up my whole Christian life. And I'm always surprised by what I learn in my adult life. Like, I grew up in the church. Like, I was born into a church.
Now, I have attended church several times.
Yeah, I have. I used to several times a week. It used to be back in the day. And like, there've been surprise moments, like not moments, but like ways of like the image bearer of God. Like, that's something that of course, it's always been like in my mind, but that phrase
Yeah.
now will stay with me forever. And that picture of restoration, and I know I want to come back to that restoration piece too, because there's something else I want to say about that. But that, what idea was I just talking about? See, this is why I can't be the only guest, because I've
Restoration?
no, I was talking about something else that I wanted to talk about that was, Jesus advocating for us.
Yeah.
When I did the sermon on grace, the grace of God for Summerfest, for the 50-year-olds, that was the piece that he is our advocate. And like the idea, I don't know why I'd never thought of it or never, the idea that he is at the right hand of God, fighting for us. Like I get like emotional about that idea and maybe that's why we're never exiled from God.
Yeah.
Not by him.
No,
Now
not
we
by
may
him.
choose to exile ourselves, but maybe that's why we're never exiled from him, because Jesus took our crap on him.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Family show.
I know, crap diarrhea. I've done it both.
Kayla, clip that.
Yeah.
Crap diarrhea, I've done it both.
Make sure.
Clip that.
Oh no, now it's going to be forever. Oh no. But maybe that's why I have never felt exiled from God himself.
Yeah.
I have felt, I felt exiled from people. I've had people not like me, not like decisions I've made. I remember someone years ago saying, as long as, and I guess this is what they were saying, as long as you are living according to his principles, you are going to make decisions that people are not going to like.
Yeah.
But you can stand tall and firm in those, and you can be okay and stay above the fray, because you know that your decision was principled. It was under the principles of compassion and generosity and self-control and all the things we talk about. But anyway, back to so yes, I have felt exiled by people for sure. Sometimes because I have done the wrong thing, sometimes because I've done the right thing and people just don't like it. But I haven't felt exiled from God by him.
Yeah.
I have turned my back on him at certain times, but I've never felt like and maybe it's because Jesus is advocating for us all the time.
I don't think it's true that he's exiled me, but I've definitely felt.
Really?
Yeah. Like, what is this all for? Are we even in relationship anymore? Like I've definitely felt that, but I don't know that. I don't think that he has exiled me. I don't think he's abandoned me. It's just like the feeling of when you're in a really dark place, you're like, I am all alone, including
from God.
And that's a lie. Yeah. That's not true.
Yeah. I think that's more, that's
Yeah.
definitely more like the enemy trying to mess with your mind.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we represent probably the population. Yeah. Like some people have probably felt like, God, where are you, God?
Yeah.
And some people feel like he's been with me all along.
Yeah.
I have a really strong faith meter.
Okay.
Like, no, I don't mean it like that. Like, it's like it's like, it's probably a problem too. Like sometimes I'm like, everything's going to work out. Not always, but I always think it is.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's probably,
that's
I think there's some bad things to that too. Oh, okay. So there you go. I wanted to say something about the restoration thing. That's not a word. Cut that. That's not a word. The restoration process.
You do?
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to say it now, or it might come up in another question?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just love the idea of, because I think Barry touched on it toward the end of his message about like, when you mess up, are you right back at square one? Like you've been going great for a while. You did the things and you're really, and then you do whatever you weren't supposed to do. And I love the idea of that you're not going back to square one. You've already you've put in some work, you've done some. So I feel like that, like if you're looking at the painting, you have already done some restoration.
Yeah.
And then you do go back. So maybe there's just a little blemish that you've got to get, but you don't have to go back to the beginning and start all the way over. Yeah. And I think that's freeing for a lot of people, because we all, when we've got that thing in our life that is like the overwhelming problem, all of us have something or some things that are our go-to, like anger is an issue for me, or patience is an issue for me. And the idea that I would have to start all the way back to the beginning would be like overwhelming.
When in one of my dark moments, I remember talking to Amy Osgood about this.
She's a great one to talk to.
And she told me something that I'll never forget. I don't remember exactly what it was, but she told me something like this concept that I'll never forget, which is when we confess or
Mhm.
surrender ourselves to God, whether it's about our behaviors or sin or life, um, it's the concept of new creation, and it's basic. It's almost like it had never happened before. Like if I'm asking forgiveness for lying,
Mhm.
next time I lie, my God, I know that I continue to do this. But according to God, we are white as snow. You know,
Mm.
we are a new creation. We are blemish free. And it's
Mhm.
almost as if, not almost, it is as if we had never done the previous lying before, because God doesn't think about that. He's
Right.
like, I forgave you. Forgiveness means forgiving.
Right.
I'm not thinking about, I don't even remember all that stuff that you did.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably does, but
Right.
but it's almost like every time you're asking for forgiveness, it's not, you don't have to go back all the way.
Right.
Like humans, we think back all the way
Well,
of
that's
our
because we
past.
keep score.
But God's like, no, you're a new creation. I don't even, it's not even like I'm talking to the same person that lied last time.
Well, and don't you think it's also because Jesus is advocating for us?
Yeah.
Like Barry kind of said that in the message, like God sees us as
Yeah.
his image bearers. Like
Yeah.
he sees us because of what Jesus did for us. He sees us in these beautiful ways that we're not even capable of seeing ourselves. Like, because I believe because Jesus is right there continuing to plead on our behalf. Like that's like such a beautiful image. And it's something that we as human beings are really bad at. But like any marriage counselor would say to you, if your spouse messes up on this again, you can't, the idea of in the middle of an argument, bringing up things that happened last week, 6 months ago, a year ago is not going to help the here and now. And you shouldn't be keeping track of all the wrongs all the way through to make
Yeah.
your point. I mean, I think that's again, how we are image bearers of God, is that we're not keeping a checklist of everything everybody's done to us
Mhm.
when they've asked forgiveness along the way.
Yeah.
And marriage is just an easy example of that, because that's a relationship that, I mean, I feel like daily I'm messing up. And if he's keeping score on everything that I've done for the last 31 years
Yeah.
that I've asked forgiveness for, and I'm sorry, and I'm trying to do better. And
Yeah.
some days I do and some days I don't, that we wouldn't have a marriage if you kept track of all of that. So I think you're right. I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it. Good for Amy Osgood. She's always got such wisdom.
Yeah. So I don't know if that'll help anyone else, but remembering that, and remembering throughout the series, remembering that God's dealings with Israel and our sin are all part of a progressive revelation of his nature and his image and his redemptive purposes. Like, I think in Hebrews, it says something like the law and the sacrificial system were like shadows of what was to come in
Mhm.
Jesus. And just thinking of that, like this is a big story that is pointing to God's redemptive purposes. It's a progression of his relationship with humanity. And I think remembering that was important for me. And the only way we can really embrace that and live into it is when we surrender, which is what Barry said
Right.
this past weekend.
Yeah.
But
And
I
yeah.
have a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
So this is kind of throughout the series, not necessarily pertaining to this past weekend, but throughout the series, we've been encouraged and challenged to see ourselves not primarily as a sinner, but as the image bearers of God, with sin disfiguring that image. How do you think that concept of being created in the image of God challenges the way that we typically define our identity? Or has it for you?
Well, I mean, it has, because I don't think that I spend my life thinking up to this point, and maybe now I will be better about it. I don't know that I think of my life as like the idea that I would disfigure what God looks like to the world because of my actions and my behavior and my heart that's a pretty high calling.
Mhm.
Like that's, and I don't know that I felt the gravity of that. I don't know that many Christians feel the gravity of that. Like you are, and I've heard it before. I mean, I think Dave said one time that we were little Christs, you
Yeah.
know, in quotations, that walking around on the earth. So that feels heavy. And I don't know that I've taken it into proper account, that like everywhere I go, I have and instead of being shamed and like bogged down by it, I want to try and look at it as everywhere I go, I have the opportunity to bring new creation.
Mhm.
That feels hopeful and exciting, instead of I'm making, and I like the idea. I mean, I like the picture of disfiguring God. I think it's a good like image but I love the idea, the freeing idea of not so much that I'm disfiguring the image of God, but more that when I hold to the principles that he has given me, when I surrender to him, when I love him first and foremost, and I love my neighbor as myself, then I'm bringing new creation to the people in the world around me.
Yeah.
Like that image is like the thought of like where I walk, things are new and beautiful.
Mhm.
That's really like exciting to me.
Yeah.
It's still daunting and overwhelming because I'm a horrid I'm a horrid sinner.
Sinful wretch.
Yes, I'm a sinful wretch. But the idea of that, I think if more Christians saw themselves as that, maybe they would be more cognizant of like the time they spend with God, and because we can't do that of our own. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing too. Like all of this is dependent on your relationship with God and allowing the Holy Spirit to do the work. Like all of that, it's all dependent on you.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to do the work to bring new creation? Because it's not just going to spring out of you. It only comes from the deepening of your soul and your heart, and in relationship with him.
Yeah. I see a lot of hope in starting from a place. I know a lot of people, and maybe even myself, we started from a place that was like, we are broken and we are sinners, and
Right.
God needs to save us.
Right.
Starting from a different place of we are created in the image of God, and this thing called sin is what has disfigured us. Not we are sinners in need of
A
saving.
savior. Right.
It just has a different feeling of belonging, of
Mhm.
like potential for righteousness, of
A lot less
care.
shame.
Yeah, a lot less shame. We're new creations. We're beloved children of God. Like it just feels different. And I think it is different. It's more than just feels different.
Mhm.
Like looking at it through that lens, like you're saying, like there's more purpose there than you're a sinful person and you need saving. I'm in the place as a dad right now where like putting the kids to bed, and Milo, who's 7, is like, Dad, am I going to hell?
Yeah.
And we have to have that conversation. And he's like, and I'm like, why would you think that? And he's like, because I do bad things. And
Mm.
I don't know what his mind can hold, but
Mhm.
those types of comments are coming from a place where it's like, I'm starting from a point of sinner. I'm not
Mhm.
starting from a point of beloved
Right.
image of God.
Right.
you
Yep.
know? So
Yeah. And I wish I had been more in this frame of mind when I was raising my kids.
yeah.
Because I think that they're a generation, and not just my kids, but this idea is so much more compelling to them, to my kids and the kids younger than them, than the idea of shame and guilt because I'm a sinner and I'm gross and I'm wrong and I'm like evil or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, I think in the previous podcast, I turned to Annie during week 2 of the series and I was like, who wouldn't want to hear this?
Mm.
And she was like, I know exactly. Like, why? I don't want to just check off, oh, I'm still a gross sinner, but Jesus died for me and I believe in him, so I'm going to heaven. I don't want to just check that box. Like that's not enough. And I want people to be excited about bearing the image of God to the world that needs them, and a world that needs them. I think that's the other thing there's a problem. Like Barry was saying, a broken world. I think there's a lot of American Christians that don't think beyond, you know, this little hemisphere of
Mhm.
of the world, or this continent that we live on in this country. And um he's here to redeem the entire world, not just us.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that I think my kids generation is like, we're tired of just hearing about,
Yeah.
you know, America stuff.
So I think that covers it. What will you remember about this series? Because I think this is a pretty important series for the lifeblood of Grace Church.
Mhm.
Talking about moral integrity, it's something that we don't talk about that often. We don't have like ministry programs directed toward moral integrity that often. We have a lot of stuff about justice. We have a lot of stuff about, you know, serving one another, self-giving love, things like that. But we don't have a lot of stuff that forces us to talk about moral integrity and morality and things like that. So what will you remember about this series?
Just a lot of what we've talked about today, just that I have the opportunity to bear the image of God to a world that needs him. And that's what will draw people to him. It's not the talk of like, are you going to heaven or hell? Are you
Yeah.
like, where are you spending eternity? Like that. I want people to be drawn to who God is because of who he is. And the
Yeah.
only way that that's going to happen is by us as his followers bearing his image, bringing new creation to the world that we live in. And these principles help guide us in that. Like,
Mhm.
I'm glad that our congregation has principles that they can look to, like, and they all work in tandem. Like, it's not like, oh, I had compassion today, but I lost self-control. Like all your decisions have
Yeah.
to have all of these principles with the posture of surrendering to God and self-giving love, all of that. And it takes some thinking and it takes some soul searching. But those are the pieces that I will walk away with. And I think it's been a really compelling series. And you could think that when you talk about a series with moral integrity, that people would walk away maybe feeling overwhelmed or shame
Yeah.
or guilt or I'm not good enough. And I hope and I think that people walked away from this one feeling like I've got the tools now to be all that God's called me to be
Yeah.
and bring freedom to a world that I hope people felt it was a freeing sermon series
Yeah.
and not one that they felt more constrained by.
Yeah.
Or,
I think I'm going to think about the role of grace in that. I've always believed that grace is a gift from God. Like
right.
grace is it's a gift.
Yeah.
But it's not just a gift. It's the means. It's not just the means of forgiveness. It's a powerful force of transformation.
Mhm.
And I think that's how we get past the get out of jail free card. It's
Mhm.
like we receive grace, and instead of just being like, thanks for the gift,
Right.
but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, it's a powerful force for transformation. And it's basically like, it's not permission, but it kind of feels like grace is the force that allows us to actually live into the image of God.
Mm-hmm.
It's two things. It's a gift, but it's also transformation. It has the potential to transform us. And I think that's what I'll remember about the sermon series. I'll also remember the art restoration thing, but
Well, and recognizing back to the grace thing, recognizing that you were in need of that grace.
yeah.
There's a humility in that. And that is what will, that's part of the transformation too, is coming from that place of humility of like, look, I'm broken too. And I was in need of this grace. And it's kind of like that. What is that phrase? To whom much is given, much is required, or much is expected.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Well, that too from Spider-Man, right?
Yeah.
But the power of grace there is a responsibility in that. Like the grace is not just given to you to whittle it away.
Yeah.
The grace is given to you so that you can extend that then.
Yeah.
And it bear his image through the grace
Yeah.
that you extend to the rest of the people around you.
It's transformative.
Yeah.
It can transform.
Yeah.
All right. Something practical before we wrap up here.
Yes.
The men of grace are having a men's life is having a men's life roundtable on sexual integrity. So this is a result of talking about moral integrity. Sexual integrity is obviously an important thing for all of us, but particularly men. They are having a roundtable on September 12th. And it's all about moral integrity. And so they want to find growth in community at Grace. So on September 12th, they're having this roundtable, and then Men's Life on September 16th through October 14th, a 5-week follow-up series talking about this. So we encourage you, if you want to be part of a discussion about sexual integrity, or it's something that has been important to you in your life, or maybe you struggle with it or whatever, there's a roundtable opportunity for you to go deeper into the moral vision and moral integrity that we are being called to. So
good.
That's something we can do. What else are we going to do next? Tell us a little bit about Hope Month and what's coming up.
And I keep calling it Pain Month, which
Why?
is weird. I don't know, because we're focused on pain for the month. So I keep calling it Pain Month.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to focus on the broken place of pain, which takes all sorts of forms, whether it be physical pain or emotional pain or mental pain, like all sorts of. And I know Barry did a sit down interview with a bunch of congregants from Grace that are dealing with pain in different ways. And so we'll see moments of that throughout the series. Barry is on a vacation, and then we have a lead team retreat. So he is actually not preaching the month of
he's out
September. So it'll be Tim, Dave.
Yep.
Dave Rod, Milton Keys is coming back, which is exciting. And I'm doing 1 week. So it's going to be good.
Good. Yeah. We've got a lot in store. I think, for those of you who are new to Grace or don't actually attend Grace, you just listen to this podcast. Every year we focus 1 month on talking about one of the 6 broken places of the world. This year, we're talking about, like Amy said, the broken place of pain. We got a lot in store, including opportunities of how we can step into people's lives to relieve pain. So there's all kinds of pain. Obviously, there's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, perhaps. A lot of those like overlap. One of the things I've learned, and even doing the video that you were talking about, just because you have physical pain, that doesn't mean you're just limited to physical pain. Like physical pain, a lot of times means that you also have emotional pain.
Oh, usually. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of overlap, a lot of intersection. And so we want to be a place that just doesn't hear about the broken places, but September will be a month where we get to compel people to participate in the healing of these broken places.
And help somebody out.
Yeah.
Help somebody in your life.
Got weekend of service coming up at the end of the month. There will be more opportunities to jump in and learn how we can heal people's pain in the month of September.
Yeah, it's going to be a good month. And this is it for me, Tyler.
Yeah.
I am no longer
What
a favorite
was it like? So
co-host.
you've been here week after week for 3 months. We took the month of July off.
So a couple months. It's been
What's
good.
it been like? Yeah.
It's been fun. Me. I've got the gift of gab. I like
we
to
gotta
talk.
We got to do an exit survey.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Send me all the comments people make. I would love to. I would love to hear what people have to say about me on the. But Maren will be back, and that'll be great. We're anxious for her to come back and see her and hear how her sabbatical went and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, everybody gird your loins.
Yeah, I saw Maren a couple days ago. We went to Green Egg Fest.
Oh, I didn't see you there. I was there.
Oh, you were there?
I was there. It was hot.
Yeah, it was very hot. We went,
and it's too much food.
Maren, don't be negative.
I'm sorry. It was a lot of food.
Yeah, that's the whole point. But Maren, Jed,
sick.
and I went.
No, Lauren?
No, because it's a long story.
I'll just tell you this. I will say this. We were standing there. I was there with a couple of other friends of ours, and Jeff was there too. And we were like, oh, wow. Don't you just wish you could have brought your baby to Egg Fest? I mean, the people
in the 95
pushing,
degrees.
I mean, it's crowded and they're pushing strollers and it's 95 and like 100% humidity. It was, I was like, It's pretty hot out here. Okay. So what about Egg Fest?
So anyways, Maren's going to come back and she's going to talk all about how she's gotten into smoking meats, and it's going to be very offensive for me.
It almost sounded like you said smoking weed.
No,
but it's smoking meats. Everybody, he did not. He said smoking meats.
Yeah, smoking meats.
Okay,
so that's what Egg Fest is. It's just a bunch of
I don't like smoked
meats.
So
whatever.
that was the other problem.
So I have been an avid
Meat
participant
smoker.
for a decade or more.
Right.
And now she's doing it and she's just better at me than stuff.
Yeah.
She's better than me at stuff.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have to deal with that when she comes back.
You're going to have a smoke off?
No, I don't want to because I know she's going to be better. Like one of the things they were giving away at Eggfest was smoked Spam Reubens.
Ugh, it was so gross.
Did you even try it?
No. That's the problem.
Smoked Spam Reubens.
You
And
guys
Marin-
can have your smoked meat. It's not my fave.
smoked
so,
Spam Reubens.
Yeah.
And Marin went home and did that. She just smoked Spam and put it on with the Thousand Island or whatever
Yeah,
goes
Thousand
on a Reuben.
Island. Yeah.
And she's just going to come back and we're going to have to talk about how she's better at me.
You know
than
what my
me at one
favorite
more
thing was
What?
at Eggfest? The blueberry cobbler. Did you have that?
Yeah.
I gave him one of my tickets.
All right.
It was delicious. You
Good.
to put tickets in for your favorite.
Yeah, we don't need to get in it.
All right. Well, I'm just telling because I said I put my ticket in. I know I don't need to get into it. People could listen to me talk about Eggfest for
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, you're so positive.
I am.
All right, that wraps up August.
It does.
Amy, we'll see you
Whenever,
sometime, probably
someday,
in October.
maybe about the show.
Yeah, we'll talk about the show
Yeah.
in October. But for now, will you please send us out?
Do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God.
Wow, no notes. We'll see you on the other side of Sunday.